Hello, friends. Welcome to the Living Truth Podcast. This is Kristin, Cary hosting today, and I am very eager to have a conversation with Gigi Hopkins. Gigi, thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
It's my joy to be here with you, Kristin. We've met some in some of the conferences, and I really appreciate and value your work. In fact, some of our ladies have gone and gotten further help with you as well. And so I love that networking that we get to have too in this field.
I do too. It is such a gift to be able to be in this work together. Gigi and I, off the air, just discovered all these different cool things that we have in common. But Gigi runs the wives care part of Be Broken Ministries, which is a great ministry out of San Antonio, Texas. They have a podcast, they have groups for men struggling with unwanted sexual behavior, a wives care groups for betrayal trauma. She's been the director since 2012 and actually started their groups for betrayal trauma healing in 2016. So she leads this whole big team of staff and volunteers that have helped hundreds of Christian wives get started on their healing journey from betrayal. And like you said, Gigi, many of those women after your 6-week groups have gone on to join Women in the Battle. So I feel like we've got this beautiful partnership. Yes. And Gigi lives in San Antonio with her husband. She's a grandparent, loves being involved with her faith community, her friends, and her family. And Gigi is going to talk to us today about how our influence can grow as we heal from betrayal trauma. And we're going to talk about the influence, the difference between what we really want early on in betrayal trauma, which is to manage the situation, to have a certain outcome.
Yes.
And that's not quite possible outside of our own selves. But we can take heart and have hope that we can have a tremendous influence and impact on the world around us, on ourselves, on our children. So, Gigi, tell me more about why this topic is important to you.
Sure. I would love to. One is, I think that when you're facing something so significant as betrayal, it's really, really hard to see anything coming out of this that is good. So, and we all have, I think, a deep desire to make a difference for good in the world. And so when you're facing something like this, you're like thinking, oh my gosh, my family is ruined. My life is ruined. It's hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel. So you and I have seen the light. And I would love to just camp on this part of the light at the end of the tunnel, that actually this trouble that is so significant and devastating can be the doorway where God is going to come in and do some deep work, where you will come out on the other end such a better version of yourself. And your influence and your capacity to make a difference will only increase because you chose to heal, right?
Yes.
So, I'm very passionate, Kristin, about getting women into healing. And that's kind of how we gear the wives care groups, make it as gentle as possible so that they can join and buy the value, because it really is all about some deep transformational work that God's going to do through this, and this is one of the things that will come out of that, is that you will be able to make a difference in such a better way than you've ever imagined. So does that,
It's so powerful, and so hopeful, especially for women in early recovery who are early stages of discovery, who are just feel like they're pinned under the rubble. and wonder how anything good could ever come from this, and how their lives could ever be salvaged or redeemed for good. So hopeful.
Yes. And here's one aspect too, that when you find yourself in this situation, especially early on, this is a traumatic event, as we know
Yes.
today, where we become dysregulated, and it's hard. Our window of tolerance goes narrow. So it's hard to see things clearly and all of that. So our tendency is to go into controlling the situation and trying to manage other people, especially our husbands, and that is not only just the trauma itself. We're already exhausted just for facing that, right? And when we try to do things that are not within our control, then we are really exhausted. So controlling is a natural response to trauma, because none of us want to be hurt again.
Yeah.
So we try to, it's like looking over our shoulder and trying to find the truth that has been withheld from us. So there's a lot of room for grace here, that this kind of control response happens because we're trying to protect ourselves. But as you know, in healing, we're going to try and move from that into the areas of control that actually God has for us. And a very clear one is our opportunity to choose to really invest in our own healing.
Okay, so important, Gigi, because it's not fair. And I say that because I hear that from women so much, who are like mad that they're having to spend time and money and energy on a
Yes.
group and therapy or coaching because of something that their spouse did that they had no idea he was doing. And so I just want to validate for our listeners, that's true. It's not fair. But it is your responsibility to heal. Same way if you were in a catastrophic car wreck that was caused by somebody else and you wound up in a ditch with broken legs, it wouldn't be your fault, and it wouldn't be fair that you needed to go to PT and, after the emergency room and do all these things to heal, but it would be your responsibility. So I think it's so important what you said about, like, this is one area where we do have control, is our choice to heal, even when it's not fair.
That's right. Yes. And no one else can do that for us.
Right.
Right. So,
And you and I were talking before we hit record about the discomfort of healing.
Yes.
Like, healing is really uncomfortable. Can you talk more about that? Like, just to validate our listeners who are like, but I don't like this, because it is uncomfortable.
so much. Well, when you think about betrayal trauma, and this involves sex, and whenever anything involves sex, the shame factor is magnified. So we carry even shame that's not our own, related to this new discovery that we have. We have to take some actions and things that we wish we didn't have to. And I will share this too before we got started, that in my case, I do come from a ministry background, and early on, I asked my husband if he would be willing to share with someone who had authority over our calling. And, that's not comfortable for anybody. So whenever you have a lot of dysfunction in life, in order to get to a place of health, it's going to take, I look at it almost like chemo. who likes to get chemo, right? But you do have something that is life-threatening, and you do need to take action on it in order to get to a better place, right? So there is a lot of, and think about that. I don't know about you, Kristin, but when I first went to a support group, we didn't know this was betrayal trauma. We were called COSA, right? Codependence.
A co-addict. Yes. Same here. Yeah.
Yeah. So, my goodness, to find that door, and it was not even online. So, there are things we need to do for ourselves. And I'll just say those that go online and sign up for a class, who wants to do that? Who ever thought they would come to this place? So there is a lot of discomfort, but that's life, isn't it?
It is for growth. I mean, growth is uncomfortable.
Yes, yes. So, like any other thing in life that you need to get help for, now there are some additional aspects of this that complicate and bring more shame and all of that. But yes, so it's not easy. And I just applaud even those listeners that are listening to us today because they're choosing to face reality.
That is so true. So soak that in, listeners. Like Gigi and I see you. We
Yes.
see you and your courage to face the reality of what you're dealing with. Okay, back to this topic of having influence versus being able to have control, right? All of us in early days, and actually at any point in our lives, we would love to be able to manage our lives and control all the pieces of the chessboard of our lives. But it's not a game. It's not chess. It's life, and it's complicated, and it's messy, and other people have their own will, right? And so yet I know in Women in the Battle, we talk to women about, like, you could ask your husband for what you need to feel safe, right? And some women don't even know what they need to feel safe initially, right? So we help them think that through. But this is the tricky line. There's a big difference between asking for what you need and actually forcing that. And you can't force that. Then sometimes you have to make really difficult decisions, right, with boundaries in order to re-regulate yourself and to deal with the grief of if your husband is not willing.
That's right.
To do what you need to feel safe. So tell me more about this influence versus control and why this is so meaningful to you.
Yeah. One is I feel like this is an empowering concept to realize. And you're right. We have so little control, really, when we think about life and other people. And yet you do have you have choices. And I think that sometimes we focus so much on what we can't control, we don't see the choices that are in front of us, right? So even when you do come up with what you need, like you said, sometimes we need help to figure those out. Yes. And it's an invitation that you may be sharing with your husband. Hey, I need this in order to feel safe. I need this in order to move forward in our relationship. The trick is this. Sometimes we think that you could just, with adults, we can't tell them what to do, right? You can, done in a good way is you make requests, you make boundary requests, and then they come up with their answer, right? But when you receive their answer, guess what? You get to also make other choices. So it is a dance, all of this, right? But when someone chooses to really focus on their journey and get the clarity they need to take their own steps, it does have an impact in the relationships around them. Just as an example, I was talking to someone today who is working in her own journey, and the way that she interacted with another family member who wasn't even her husband was different. And her daughter said, "Mom, you handled that so well," because she wasn't trying to control that family member like she would before, or talk back, So even that had an impact. And this person is in a bit of an early stage on the people around her daughter, So when we take ownership of the choices that belong to us, especially when it pertains to taking on your own healing wholeheartedly, let me tell you, it's just a matter of time when it will start showing up around you. It doesn't mean that you're going to change others. We're not doing this so that, again, this is not control, right? We're taking responsibility for our lives and focusing on the things that we have, that God has given us to steward. So,
So you've talked about, one of the things that is within our responsibility is our healing. What are some other zones or areas of influence and impact that we can have agency and make choices? And I'd love for you to speak to this, considering women in earlier stages of recovery, right? Because there's that confusion and the chaos of what's true, what's not. What are some ways in which we can have some agency in those stages?
yeah. And you said related to healing, right?
Yeah, but I mean, just when it could, you could expand from there. But because here's the deal, right? Early on in recovery, our agency feels like it's non-existent. Like trauma makes us feel stripped of any kind of power in our lives.
Yes.
It's what it looks like, right? Because we had no power over that traumatic event. In this case, not just event, but like relational patterns that have gone on for years or decades. Not just relational patterns, secrets and a secret sexual life. That are traumatic. So it can feel like we have no agency and it can feel out of control. And here's another thing I thought about, just to kind of throw this curveball at you. I think of how many women early on talk about they can't even have control over their own minds because of all the PTSD symptoms, the intrusive thoughts and images, the tornado brain, all of that. It can feel like I don't even have control over my ability to sleep or eat or whatever. So,
yes. I
go
can
ahead.
think of one area in particular that and it is part of the healing recommendations that we have. I'm sure you do too. The area of self-care. For
Huge.
me, that was a game changer in terms of empowerment and helping me to manage those up and down times, especially early on. And I remember, Kristin, when someone, she was my coach back then. She was also in ministry with us, and she asked me, "What do you like to do?" Okay, basic, right? And I remember just being put off by the question, right? I was thinking, I'm not here to talk about that. In my situation, so I was married for 19 years before I discovered what was going on, and I grew very detached to the person that I was, because I was trying to manage. I was over functioning in the relationship and thinking, that the problems that we had were related to me. Also, a mom of three, right? So we tend to just really give it all. And I think my identity became very blended and very enmeshed with my husband and all of that. So that question, what do you like to do? Even though I didn't like it at first, I gave myself permission to ask that afterwards and engage with things. And I started very simple. I'm a social person, and I started going out to coffee with my neighbor friend. And I remember coming back from things that energized me, little simple things, or started taking walks in the beach
Yeah.
area. And coming back and feeling like, whoa, this is good for me. I feel better. So the idea, the concept of self-care, looking at it not as selfish, but as a way to steward my life at a very delicate time.
Yeah.
And how would God, I'm one of his children. I'm worthy of care just like anybody else. We tend to do that very well with everybody around us, but I had neglected that, engaging in activities that would energize me, that I'm passionate about, right? So just doing that, there will be also an impact in people around us because they will see a new energy and a new spark, right? And it's a way to, I like what Marsha Means says, to refill your joy cup that has been drained dry. So, so that's an example of an area that makes a big difference in the impact. Does that make
Oh yeah, I agree. I agree. And what else? What are other areas do you think that we do have the ability to use our agency?
Well, the ones that I'm thinking about do come back to healing,
Yeah,
and
go for it. Unpack them. I want to hear.
yeah, the area of emotion, processing emotions,
Yes.
which is significant. Most of us have not done a lot of that until we really had to. So even pausing, which we do that in healing, and asking ourselves, how do we feel? I have it right here, right? The feelings wheel. And asking ourselves, where did I first feel that way? And things like that, that really give you information about your heart and your ability to be present for yourself. That's an area that we do have agency to do that work, to avail ourselves. For some of us, that is difficult and it's even scary, right?
It takes a lot of practice too.
It does. It
It's
does.
not something that most of us know right away.
Right. So doing this emotional work is is going to help in every area, not just for ourselves to feel more grounded in how we're feeling and what can I do about this when I have this feeling as well, right? Because triggers come in all shapes and forms when you're facing betrayal. So it will be important to know how to manage ourselves. That is empowering because we do feel helpless initially. I know for me, I was dysregulated emotionally and would cry in the most inopportune times. Every wedding I would go, my husband dreaded it because that was, we were invited to so many weddings early on. So we were in
Weddings
ministry.
are really triggering, and I think a lot of women don't. They're not prepared for that. So, listeners, if you're dealing with betrayal and you haven't gone to a wedding yet, have a
Mhm.
good self-care plan and a good exit strategy and a good place to take a pause, and because there will be grief.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So that would be an area of healing work. Definitely boundaries.
Yes.
And like you
Okay,
said,
tell me more about that, because boundaries are often get a bad rap, especially among Christians, right?
mhm.
Because we misunderstand what they mean. And tell me why they're so important for this ability to have influence and have control over ourselves rather than managing others.
Yes, because true healthy boundaries are all about us. It's not about controlling other people or telling them what to do, even though, we're gonna give yourself grace because, initially we're very confused about how this works, right? But it is about protecting what we need in order to heal. It is about safety, emotional safety, and acquiring that in the best way that we can, right? Taking care of ourselves. So I'll share with you all an initial boundary. I didn't know it was a boundary because I said we were in ministry, and when I confronted my husband the first time, I told him, I'm not willing to stay in ministry unless you're willing to share someone with someone who has authority over our calling. And only many, many years later, I understood that authenticity for me is a high, high value. So often our boundaries are connected. They are to our values, right? And the idea of me walking around in this ministry role and pretending like nothing is wrong, it would just kill me. So that was something I requested. That was a boundary request that was honored, thankfully, in my case, right? But that is an area that we get to choose certain things that we need. Another example is if you cannot sleep next to your husband, well, your sleep is important, right? So you can ask him, would you be willing to sleep on the other room? Or you might, if he's not willing, then you get to choose again. Okay. And you can ask, okay, what can I do? How can I meet this need of sleep that I have? Well, I can remove myself and sleep somewhere else, right? And we need
That's
help.
really important.
We often need help, right, Kristin? So
Yeah.
getting talking, like I said, this coach friend that I had, she was very important to me in designing the the boundaries I needed for the season that I was in.
Mm.
So, but yeah, that is empowering. And my goodness, boundaries, they changed the dance in the
Oh,
relationship,
yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
they do communicate a lot, especially when you act on things that you have power over. You can remove yourself because now this is what I need. One boundary that I had for myself is I had a space in the house that I could go and just be. And I feel like everyone here needs to have a safe space that you retreat and you talk with God, that you can. I remember putting my face on the floor and crying out, but it was my safe place. And that was a boundary too that I had. I removed myself from the family when I needed that space. It made some people uncomfortable. And that's there is all of that, but I was taking care of myself. Yeah, so those are just some examples. What
I love those examples. And about the whole having a space that you can retreat to. I love when I see women come to my groups and they are in their closet or their car or their
Mhm.
bathroom because they're using what they can. I mean, you know, women who have several kids and there's just not a room, there's not an like like a dedicated space. You could make your closet or a bathroom or your car into your space for a place where you could cry, a place where you can make noise if you need to, right? And because
Mhm.
this healing journey is messy. It's messy work. It's messy. It's primal, right? And
Mhm.
sometimes we need to release those guttural cries.
Yes, we do. And we are. Look, you are setting example because you're taking care of yourself emotionally.
Yeah.
And you are, there is a, like I said to you, all the choices that we get in life, they do have an impact on those around us, right?
Yes.
So I do want to share an example that's a little more recent that
Yeah, please.
just to give the ladies a bit of a vision, right? So in my story, it's been quite a while, 20 years ago, right? Similar to yours, that things came to the surface. And in those early times, it took about 5 years. Our kids were teenagers. It was rough for us to take really for the Lord to lead me to a boundary that needed to happen, that I couldn't do this anymore. And this year, I was doing some work with my therapist because we're still a work in progress, ladies, and I take really good care of myself because I know that's good stewardship. And so I still go to a counselor. And
Same here. Same here.
yeah, there we
I
go.
and women they need to know like it's not that we're like in that primal pain of early days. It's that we start to have a taste of what more healing could look like and
Yes.
what more freedom could look like and what more joy and hope
Amen.
and like release from the things that hold us captive could look like. And so the continued therapy is like is a reflection both of our vulnerability as humans, the fact that we have areas of brokenness, no matter how long we are professionals even in this field, but also the capacity that we have to continue to grow and to become a better version of ourselves, like the version of ourselves that God had in mind when he created us in the first place. So
Yeah.
sorry, go ahead. I want to hear your
Amen.
boundary. I
Well,
mean
I
your
love
example
that.
of healing. Yes.
We have that in common, because you're right. I mean, we're passionate about, we want more.
Yeah.
We've tasted and seen the good that God has brought, the beauty out of the ashes, right? And so if we need to do more work, we're up for it.
That's right.
And so I had a moment with the therapist that I went back to the 5 years and put the name of our girls there and how old they were in each year of those the most difficult time that I was facing, and that broke me. It just broke me to see, my goodness, they were in such formative years and teenage years, and I was doing my best, but I failed them in many, many ways. Emotionally, I wasn't all that I could be for sure. And we did pay a high price later on for some of that too. And I'm not looking at my husband even right now. I'm just looking at me and taking responsibility for me and making amends with my girls. So I went to them and I asked, how did you experience that time in your life? I want to hear from your perspective. And one in particular, she just, my eldest, oh my goodness, she had so much pain stored in there that came out, you know, and she was crying and I was crying, and we had a moment, a healing moment, because all of that was in there. But because of the work that I was doing in my own life, I opened the doorway for her to just come and just put it all out there. So that was significant then. So I'll just tell you, I'm not doing any of this thinking of what they're going to do with this information, right? But later in a family dinner, I have 3 girls, and this daughter brought it up in front of all of us to my middle daughter, how she had hurt her when they were little, and that she's really sorry about that, and so I'm like, I can't even believe what's happening. And then I'll tell you one more example, okay? My dad, I shared with my dad what has been happening with me addressing these things with my girls, areas that I failed them, making amends and all of that. And the next day, my dad comes and says, how have I hurt you? How do I need to ask you forgiveness? I'm not sharing with my dad to bring that on. So this is an example, just a picture of when we do our work and we follow through as God leads us to do, like if you need to make amends, if you need to ask that question, do it, right? God brings about things so much more. There is an impact. That's what we're talking about here, the influence that we get to have, the capacity. If I don't do this work and if I don't make the amends I need to make, it's not going to be the same. The impact is not the same. And interestingly, when this was going on in the dinner table, and I said, I'm so proud of you for bringing this up. The girls turned to me and said, Mom, we're doing this because of you, because you taught us how to heal, so that to me was like, I couldn't receive a greater gift.
That is amazing. And I think of how inspiring that will be to our listeners, Gigi, because for those of us who are moms, I think for many of us, one of our greatest concerns is the fallout, the impact on our children. And yeah, that is a heartbreaking fear that many of us have. So your experience is so incredibly hopeful.
Well, yes. Remember, ladies, the story is not finished until we go to heaven. So there
Absolutely.
is a lot of healing that will take place. And the more that you invest in in the areas that God has given you control of and your agency, that no one else can do it for you. When you go all in those areas, you will never regret it. And the impact that it will have in the whole picture, it will be for better. Because that's what God does, right? He's not a surface God. He's not a Band-Aid God. He will go deep and he will heal things that were not even related to the betrayal. And that's why we're passionate about doing the deeper work, because we want more of the freedom, more of the healing, and more of the usefulness that we get to have because of that. So
I'm so hopeful, Gigi. Is there anything else that you feel like you haven't gotten to say yet that you want to share with our audience?
Well, I wanted to give just a freebie that I love. This is a book that someone recommended to me more recently. How to Win Friends and Influence People. Most people know this by Dale Carnegie,
Yeah.
right? And I like this tip, that if you want, and I think all of us want to have a positive impact in the people around us, right? And there are a couple of things that I like to just bring up that has helped me. And one is to be genuinely interested in other people. Find out what they care about, how they spend their time. Be more interested than interesting. I like that sentence. So, and again, I'm just speaking very generally here, not about your marriage relationship or anything. But if your marriage is to move forward from betrayal, this is also important, right? And be curious, be interested in your husband and what moves him and all of that. And then the other one, I was raised in a very affectionate home, but not in one that gave words of encouragement, that found different things in people to bring it up, So I like this. This is something I had to work on. Give frequent praise. Take time to notice good in other people and let them know. Become characterized by genuine appreciation and praise. So just wanted to give you these two tips that have been precious to me in the area of influence and making the most that it can be. And I know, Kristin, if a marriage is healing and recovering, I don't think a husband wants to hear from anybody else as much as he does from his wife words of encouragement. That means the world, right? So that is something to keep in mind as well.
Thank you, Gigi. Your words and your story, your example is just so meaningful. And friends, we will place some links to be able to find Gigi's ministry, Be Broken, in our show notes for the podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your experience and your hope with us today, Gigi.
Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to be here with you, Kristin.
Absolutely. Friends, if you're listening to this, would you take a moment to rate and review the Living Truth podcast just wherever you listen to your podcast? That helps more people find us. It helps the algorithm so that more people, when they're doing a search for this really sensitive, painful topic, it will bring our podcast to their attention so they can get the hope and the healing that they need. And until the next episode, I am holding out hope for you.